This is the second video in a series I'm doing on how to dispatch and run the towers on the Transcon 4. In this short video, we'll be looking at some railroad terms that I so loosely throw around. Then we'll be looking at territories, and then we'll be looking at calling crews. Some terms I use that you might not be familiar with, just to make sure we're all on the same page. When I say an inbound train, I'm talking about trains coming into Chicago. On my dispatcher's board, this is designated by the black pins. And we have black pins on both ends, so those are coming into Chicago. Likewise, an outbound train is any train coming out of Chicago, and that's designated by the red pins. When I say that you've been called for a train, that means that you're going to get a job to do. Going to be a mainline train or a local, let's say. Each railroad in real life has a caller's office and people employed, and all they do are call crews. And I can remember fondly and sometimes not so fondly getting a call at home when I worked for Norfolk and Western. Scenario was that Liz would pick up the phone and she'd look at me and say, "It's the caller's office." And I'd take the phone and I'd ask who my crew was. Liz always packed a nice little lunch for me, and she'd make maybe a pie and cake for me and the kids. And if it were really good friends I was going to work with, I'd pack a piece of pie or cake for them too, to share. And on the other hand, the one person that I didn't get along with, I reveled in eating that pie or piece of cake, smacking my lips and going, this sure is good. And I always waited till it was daylight to do it so he could see me. So that's what it means to be called. On my Transcon 4, you'll run a lot on double main. The Pennsy is nearly all double main except for Daughters Hill. The Burlington's all double main except for the lift bridge. What I mean by right-hand running is, on the main line, if you're looking down the main line, that train is going to run on the right-hand main, this main here. On the other side, if you're down there looking toward me, that's his right. Now, we do that so we don't have head-on collisions. If you've been funneled onto the left-hand main for some reason, you better call the dispatcher and make sure that's where you're supposed to be. In Chicago, you run at restricted speed because all of Chicago is yard limit. It's very possible to have a switch engine dart out in front of you, or maybe the transfer job will be in front of you, or maybe the tail end of another train that's just entered Chicago. So anybody coming through the walls, they immediately reduce speed to 15 miles an hour, yet a speed that will enable them to stop short of obstruction or another train. That's what restricted speed is. Talk about track warrants. When I ask you, do you have your track warrant, that's my way of asking you if you have permission to come out and occupy the main line. Remember, when the dispatcher hands you the TIC, you've been called, he'll tell you, go get on your train and let me know when you're ready to pull. You're still a cold hunk of steel on wheels. That's all you are. Not until you get a track warrant do you have right to move that train and enter the main line. On the real railroads, I believe the N&W was the old Form A, and it was a card, maybe a little bit bigger than my TIC, but the Form A would list the train number, it would list the date, it would list how many orders you had that were going to be attached to that, and then it would list the number of each order that would be attached to that. And that was done by the old Form 19s. So you'd get a little package of orders clipped to the Form A. That was our track warrant and orders. Calling a crew. We call crews in rotating order on the Transcon 4. On my layout, nobody gets to hot shot a train. They take what's offered to them. My process of calling a crew goes something like this. Always go to the top of the stack of the TICs. You take the card. In this case, it's job number 1. It's the White River train number 14. The location, it says, is on the main line between Rochelle and Savannah. So I immediately go to my inbound pins, which are the black pins, and when it's on the main line, it'll always be already be on the main. So I find the pins, and they're the 2 pins. So I've got my pins set. I then go to my master train list and call sheet. I note the time I gave the TIC out and who I gave the card to. My next job is to let the tower operator know that that train has been called. So I'll go pick up the phone, and let's say it's on the Pennsylvania side. I'll call West Pullman Tower to let them know that a train's been called. In this case, it's on the Burlington side, so I would have called the Burlington tower operator at Aurora Tower. When the TIC is given out, I'll say to them, get on your train, get dialed in, and let me know when you're ready to pull, because they're nothing but a cold hunk of steel up to that point. I haven't given them their verbal track warrant yet. And if they move that train without your permission, you can't see it, but I keep a 2x4 right down here at my feet, and I'll grab that 2x4 and I'll go out and bat them up the side of the head and ask them, who gave you permission to enter the main line? I fully expect in a few minutes after I've given out the TIC for that phone to ring. And I'll pick up the phone, and the crew should give you who they are, where they are, and where they're going. For example, this is GMO Extra 811. I'm at Rochelle Staging, and I'm inbound to Clearing Yard. That's the 3 pieces of information that you need. Then I'll start to set my pins up, and one pin is for where they currently are, and the other pin is for where I've cleared them to. That's why we have the 2-pin system. We'll do a little bit more of this on the next video when we do the dispatching part. Let's talk about territories on both the Burlington side and the Pennsylvania side. Both the dispatcher and the tower operators have their own territory. On the Burlington side, you run out of St. Paul. The dispatcher has that territory from St. Paul on the upper level over to the lift bridge, down to the first level to Savannah, and to what's called West Aurora. It's the home signal at West Aurora. And in a couple videos, I'll demonstrate where West Aurora is. And then likewise, on the outbound trains, the dispatcher's territory picks up at West Aurora and runs through Savannah onto the lift bridge to the second level on into St. Paul. The Aurora Tower operator territory runs from West Aurora inbound into any yard in Chicago. On the outbound trains, his territory is exactly the same. Any yards coming out of Chicago westbound, that's his territory up to the home signal on the outbound main, the right-hand main at West Aurora. Now the tower operator also controls the commuter stub track going into the commuter station there at Aurora. And the tower operator at Aurora also controls Rochelle's staging yard, which means the lead coming out of the staging yard onto the Burlington main is under his auspices. On the Pennsylvania side, the dispatcher's territory starts at Philadelphia, runs through Pittsburgh, through Fort Wayne, all the way to the home signal at Hobart, Indiana. That's where the double track ends. Likewise, on an outbound train, the dispatcher's territory starts at the double track at Hobart, Indiana, runs through Fort Wayne, Pittsburgh, and all the way into Philadelphia. West Pullman Tower on the Pennsylvania, his territory begins inbound at Hobart, Indiana, runs up Daughtry's Hill into Chicago and into any yard that train is going to. And then the reverse is also true. West Pullman Tower territory starts in Chicago at any yard, runs down Daughtry Hill to the home signal at Hobart, Indiana. We need to know our territories. Okay, on the next video, we're going to look specifically at dispatching the Burlington side. And then after that video, we'll take a look at the tower operators. I'll be talking about both jobs at the same time, though, because they work so close together. See you then.